NelsonJoypad.com bring you another original. It's fucking great.
You never forget your first. I remember it well. My first time was in the rain on a windswept shoreline. I'd just left my party and run through a dark, dank tunnel, and as I came out into the shoreline and into the light of day, I saw the most majestic sight that I have ever seen. Oh, she was alluring, she was beautiful, she was powerful, and she was fierce. But the best thing was that she was fighting a giant. This was the first time that I saw a dragon in Dragon Age Inquisition, and it took me entirely by surprise. The fight didn't last long, but as I ran from the cave network that I'd spent the last 10 minutes fighting through, I saw what may have been one of the grandest sights Inquisition has to offer. The dragon and giant seemed equally matched. Both were hurting, as I stayed far enough away not to draw their attention, but close enough so that I didn't miss a thing. Just as the clash of the titans was drawing to a conclusion, the dragon took to the air in a mighty sweep of its leathery wings. Then it was just me, my party, and a half-dead giant. It was a truly epic moment in Dragon Age Inquisition, and it was at this precise moment that I decided that I liked it and I needed to see it through to the end. To keep the magic and integrity of the story, I won't be going into the specific plot points, and we will be keeping well clear of any spoiler territory. Dragon Age Inquisition is a hybrid of the old and the new. It's as much a compromise as is possible to get in a role-playing game. It has taken the hardcore elements from early Dragon Age titles and toned them down, while adding some complexity and choice to the mechanics of Dragon Age 2, making it much more of an exploration game than it was before. With that said, the combat has been made much more fluid than the older games. My main playthrough was as an elven mage. Spells, powers and abilities have been hotkeyed to buttons on the controller and are very easy to use after a couple hours of practice. Aside from the real-time combat, you can engage a tactical mode, and this will freeze time and allows you to manage your team's attacks, something that comes in handy when you're tackling higher level enemies or a group of assailants. The system doesn't allow you to queue attacks though, so after the initial ability has been used, AI will just revert to their standard tactics. But Dragon Age Inquisition allows for this though, and you can easily tailor each character to act in different ways. You can choose what attacks your allies will use, and can even set the preferred options. It means that prolonged fights aren't overly troublesome, with a huge amount of micromanagement, although the AI can't be relied upon to carry you through battles. The combat isn't without its faults however, as I found engaging the tactical mode will occasionally mute the audio of the main game until you reset the console. It's not a game breaker, but it definitely ruins the immersion of what could be a truly engaging experience. The other problem that I faced with the tactical view was trying to select enemies on uneven ground. It can be damn near impossible to select a unit if they're standing at the wrong angle on a hill, staircase, or even rocky terrain. It's a shame that these flaws make an appearance because it can, and has, gotten me killed on more than one occasion. BioWare have nailed the story in Dragon Age Inquisition. It's not a new story in the strictest sense. It boils down to an unlikely hero must rise and save the world, something that BioWare seem to have a fondness for, but it's done in such a way that it gets the blood pumping. Set pieces are epic and inspiring, and even side quests have the capacity to make an impact. There are pivotal moments in the story that have all the hallmarks of the last charge against the Reapers from Mass Effect 3, a moment that I think is truly great. Dragon Age Inquisition is as open a world as a narratively driven game can be. I spent the first 8 hours of my playthrough in one area and still hadn't seen everything that it had to offer. Roaming through the countryside builds a very organic sense of discovery. There's no more point A to point B or linear exploration that's been the series standard for many years. It's invigorating to decide where you go and how you proceed with the game. If you're solely focused on the main story, I have some bad news. You can't speedrun this game. There are a handful of main missions that require power to access. Power is gained from either completing side missions or closing rifts. Rifts are a new threat to Dragon Age. The rifts offer a chance to gain some power, and that is then used to unlock areas and progress with the plot. In order to seal a rift, you first have to fight off 2 waves of enemies. And these can be anything from low level spirits to high level demons, and there's no way of knowing what will come through the rift until you're within striking distance. In theory, these should help to break up the usual fetch quests and meandering, but it became a chore, one that I needed to do so that I could get enough power to progress with the story. Missions are launched from your war room. Different options are available. Some unlock areas for you to explore, and some will gain you rewards, allies, or unlock more missions for your commanders to undertake. I can't praise this enough, as it really made me feel like I was in control of the Inquisition, that I was deciding the fate of my troops, the paths we took, and while there is a finite amount of missions that will be unlocked at any given time, I really felt that my decisions mattered. That is another area where Dragon Age Inquisition stands out. The sheer number of choices in the game is staggering. In my experience, games of this nature will give you one big either-or choice, and that will decide how the game proceeds. But Dragon Age is full of these. From deciding whether or not to banish certain groups, to how you level up, there's plenty of choices to play this 100+ hour game multiple times. The levelling up system has been streamlined. You no longer choose your attributes like strength and dexterity. It does lose some of the more in-depth aspects, but I think it makes the game less confusing and much more accessible. Even levelling up your character is laden with choices, and once you unlock your speciality, it takes things to a whole new level. In my playthrough as a mage, I was given 3 choices. I could gain close quarters abilities, which turned my rather fragile support character into the ultimate of badasses. I could become a necromancer or unlock the power of the rifts to use to my own ends. Each variant totally changes the way you play and hikes the replay value even further. The one problem that I found it hard to look past was the lack of backstory. Unless you played the previous installments, then you'll probably spend a large portion of the 100-hour playthrough being slightly confused regarding the overlying plot. You can find and buy text that will fill you in, but with the amount of content to read, you'd be quicker reading War and Peace. I was never in the dark as I played the previous games, but to a newcomer, it will be disorientating. Although it never gets to the point that you don't know what to do. Knowing the backstory of the Mage Rebellion, or the status of an elf in the world of men, would have made things much less of a guessing game, and made reading endless pages of codex entries less of a chore. As is BioWare's habit, they've gone to an impressive extent to provide us with interesting, flawed companions. Everyone has their own insecurities, priorities, and opinions. Each can accompany you on your quest to save the world, and you have hours worth of interaction, personal quests, and romance options available. Even the inter-party banter as you jaunt around the world is excellent, with a character's backstory becoming more prevalent as you proceed. The interactions between your allies is commendable, and helps to enhance their personalities, to the point that I was protective of Varric, my rogue, and was heartbroken when a choice I made affected him in a negative way, while I saw the insecurities of Cassandra and helped her to achieve our own impeccable standards. The multiplayer mode will be instantly familiar to anyone who took on the challenge of Mass Effect 3's cooperative mode. It operates in a very similar way, but with a couple of small changes to stop it from being a simple copy and paste job. It's hard not to draw a straight comparison between the two, with the standard layout of each being fairly similar. In the Mass Effect multiplayer, you were tasked with surviving waves of enemies with additional challenges that you had to complete in order to finish the mission. In Dragon Age Inquisition, it's just a little different. You and your party, up to 3 other players, have to clear 5 zones. The first zone will be relatively simple with a few low-level enemies, and as you enter each new zone, more, harder enemies will show to face you. The finale of each match will be holding an area against waves of enemies. Now, you can see where I'm going with this. Along the way, the multiplayer will sometimes throw additional objectives at you, such as ensuring a lone AI soldier survives the battle or killing a specific enemy. It doesn't really add anything to the gameplay as you need to kill all enemies in every situation anyway. It can feel lackluster. There's a lack of innovation present here that feels like the multiplayer was tacked on in a short time frame simply to round out the game. Without the ability to slow time with the tactical mode for healing and area effects, it can be hard to ensure that your abilities are used to their full effect. Obviously, BioWare wouldn't stop the game every time someone decides to cast a spell, especially when you're playing with people that aren't communicating via party or open chat. I found myself fighting a losing battle more often than not. Working as a team is the key to success. It's also imperative that the group has a good mixture of characters. Chances are a group of 4 mages or 3 warriors and a rogue probably aren't going to finish the match. This becomes a problem when you search for a game and are launched into it mid-level without knowing who you're going to be paired with, so that you can pick your own character accordingly. I've been put into games with 3 other players that are the same class as I am, and it grows to be very frustrating. New equipment, weapons and potions can be obtained by buying chests. Now you can buy these with in-game money that you earn by completing the online missions, or they can be purchased with real-world money. EA are well known for their use of microtransactions, and Dragon Age Inquisition is no different. It's a shame that this trend continues to lurk in the AAA titles, and while the in-game money is earned at a good rate, I think the pay-to-win button is distasteful in the extreme. All in all, the multiplayer of Dragon Age Inquisition doesn't seem to amount to much. It can be fun to play with friends, but it comes across as unimaginative, stale, and it almost feels unfinished. It is almost as if BioWare have added the multiplayer simply for the sake of ticking the multiplayer box on their list. I really like Dragon Age Inquisition, and while there are glitches, and the graphics aren't as touched up as many games on the current gen consoles, I'm inclined to look past these faults and see the game as a whole. It is amazingly expansive, diverse, and has an organic sense of discovery and progress that is a testament to BioWare's skill in their craft. Its plot is inspiring, the choices varied, and with several character classes to choose from, each having their own speciality options, there is something here for everyone, from the most casual RPG fan to the hardcore elite. Oh, and it has big ass dragons. Dragon Age Inquisition is a great blend of the old and the new. It's accessible enough for inexperienced players, but has enough of a punch for dedicated RPG fans. It has a great story and a truly massive world with countless things to keep you occupied. It isn't without its flaws, but these are easily overlooked in what really is a fantastic game. There's absolutely no reason Dragon Age Inquisition isn't worth the buy.